Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Long Way Around podcast. We are at episode 8. Episode 8.
Wow. Look at us
Holy
go.
crap. Holy, how you know what? I say this every episode. I still don't know how we got here, but we're here. We're at
Hey.
episode 8. Thank you for continuing to support us. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on the Long Way Around podcast on Instagram and Facebook, TLWA podcast. And we're on our way. I am Tony Jackson, and you are
Kevin Sullivan. Let's go.
Let's go. We are back for episode 8. It is a celebration of our independence. And we talked about this a little bit before, and it's July. It's the ADA celebration month, July 26, 1990. You were like 1 year old in 19. You weren't even born in 1990. What am I talking about?
No, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I was in utero at this
That's
point.
right. That's right. And so we're talking about the ADA and the impact it's had on all of us. And in the last episode, we talked about navigating public spaces and how the ADA changed a lot of things for a lot of us. And so today we're going to talk about work. We're going to talk about working and what that means for all of us who live with disabilities and how the ADA has changed those things in the 35 some years, if you're watching this in 2025, that things have gone along since the ADA started. So let's talk about it today. Working. Now, Kevin.
Tony.
I have a job. Do you have a job at this point? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We'll figure that out along the way. Do you have a job?
Yeah, I work in customer success. And
do you? There you go.
Yeah.
And how's that going so far?
It's been going pretty well.
I haven't talked to you about your job. So you have a job. You work in customer service.
Mm-hmm.
I have a job. Customer success. Customer success. I have a job. I have multiple jobs, actually. I work at a disability nonprofit as a grant writer. I am a voice actor. I coach power soccer. I do a bunch of other stuff that I should probably get rid of because I'm doing too many things. But I'm doing all these things and I get paid for most of them. So we both are working people with disabilities.
Yes.
Right. And the ADA has made that more equitable for us. It has made it easier for us to find an employment, and it has made it easier for us to thrive in the workplace. Now it's an interesting thing though, right? Having a disability, being on benefits, having a job, right? Because for a long time, until I was in my early-ish 30s, I collected SSDI, supplemental security disability income.
So yeah, that sounds about right.
Supplemental security disability. If it's wrong, whatever, go look it up. SSDI. There's SSI and there's SSDI. Social Security income, supplemental security disability.
I think it's
income.
Social Security disability income.
Something like that. Anyway,
yeah.
Whatever. I'm not going to get into the who cares. Nobody cares. It's just right? Nobody cares. I was getting SSDI though, which is a little bit different than Social Security. It was still a monthly payment that came in and supported my everyday living costs, rent, food, bills, whatever. It wasn't a lot of money. However, for me, it was enough to live. And then I started working. Right. Did you receive SSDI?
I did. Yeah. Up until I started my first full-time job when I was about 26.
And okay. And so with SSDI, if I recall correctly, and somebody correct me in the YouTube comments later, I might read them and thank you. I don't know. You can, when you have SSDI, which is like Social Security, but not quite, you can receive those full benefits for up to 7 months while you work this job. And that whole, or is it 9? It's 9 months, I believe. You can receive those benefits for up to 9 months while you're working your job to make sure that you can actually sustain employment. And then after that, those monthly benefits get cut off. However, you're still considered to have a disability according to the Social Security Administration. Backtracking for a moment, in order to get SSI or SSDI payments, you have to go into the Social Security office and they have to do an assessment to make sure you're disabled. I went in there with my wheelchair and fell on the floor, and they're like, "Yep, you're disabled. You can't even get up." So yeah, you're good. You pass. You pass the test. I was just like flopping around on the floor. I was like, "I can't get up. Somebody help me up. Look, clearly I can't walk. Help me up." So they were like, "Yep, you're definitely disabled." And so once you pass that 9-month period, you can continue working your job and still be considered to have a disability by the Social Security Administration for like 7 years. And then after that, you get a little fancy letter in the mail that says, "Hey, you're not disabled anymore. You're no longer eligible for, Social Security benefits." No, I'm still disabled. However, I've been working long enough that I don't need your benefits anymore. Thank you. I just pay into them now. And so there's that. Now, I don't know if you've heard, Kevin. I've talked to many people who have disabilities, and some of them, and no judging, some of them choose not to work because they make enough money living off disability. No judgment, because there are some days where I'm working or have worked at other jobs. I love my job now. Don't fire me. I've worked at other jobs where I'm like, you know what? I don't like this. I would just rather collect benefits. I totally get it. Totally get it. Have you encountered any of those folks or had that thought yourself?
I mean, I've certainly had that thought myself, without a doubt. I haven't encountered a ton of people like that. I honestly feel like it would be somewhat challenging to do, just because of how many restrictions there are on all these programs and asset limits and things of that nature. At least like in order to live like a fully independent life, and just seeing what the cost of living is and all of that. I'm sure people do it and they're able to figure it out. But I just feel like it would be a very challenging thing to do personally.
It is. And look, as human beings, we are hardwired to take the path of least resistance, right? It's a survival technique, right? When we were cave people and hunting for food, I would have been killed at birth because I can't do anything. Thank goodness I was born thousands of years later. However, back in those hunter-gatherer days, you would have been killed too, Kevin. Don't laugh at me.
I mean,
Yeah,
I don't deny that. Hey,
you-
man, I'm so glad we were born in a time in
That's
history where
right.
we weren't like thrown off the side of a mountain or
That's
something.
right. That's right. And not even in a ceremony. We would have just been like straight out of the womb in like a little bag thrown off the side of a cliff. Right. So thank goodness we were born when we were. But getting back to what I was saying now. Jeez, Tony, God. Like we're hardwired to take the path of least resistance, and not working and getting paid for it is the least resistant thing you can do. It
Also,
really
maybe the
is.
dream. Also, maybe the dream? Question mark.
Yeah, maybe the dream. Maybe the dream. I get paid to sit around all day and watch TV and like eat and like if you're into it, like have some drinks and smoke weed and get paid for it.
There you go.
Sign me up. Right?
It sounds like a good life.
Yeah, it's a great life. And then you realize, oh, I don't really have money to do anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
You have enough money to pay your bills. You have enough money to buy food. You have enough money to buy weed every once in a while and pay for some streaming services. But if you want to do anything else, forget it.
Right. There's a difference between having enough money to exist and having enough money to live.
That's it. And so I decided that I wanted to work. In fact, I think maybe I didn't decide I wanted to work. My dad was like, "You're getting a job." And credit to my parents, because they were like, "I don't care if you're in a wheelchair. I don't care if you can't use your hands. You're getting a job." And so I got my first job at like 14 or 15, when we were living in South Korea on the military base. It was like a summer job. I went to an office and I worked with a lady. My first boss's name is Mary Kay Pratt, and I was her office assistant. And I would like help edit documents on Word Perfect. Word Perfect, I don't think exists anymore. It's Microsoft Word.
Word Perfect. I've never even heard of it.
There used to be Word and Word Perfect. And WordPerfect was my
Wow.
first word processor of choice. They're not even called word processors anymore. That's how old
Yeah,
I
they
am.
are.
Are
I think
they
they're
okay?
still called.
Nobody calls
Yeah.
them word processors.
No, not unless you're in IT.
Yes, and so I worked a summer job, and I edited documents. I didn't make copies myself because I wasn't throwing it into the copy machine, but I asked somebody else in the office to help me make copies or whatever, and I did that for like 2 summers, and I'd been working off and on ever since. I've been working off and on ever since. So I didn't work my senior year of high school because I moved to a new place and did my senior year of high school in a new high school, go Buena Colts in Sierra Vista, Arizona. So I didn't work my senior year of high school, but my sophomore and junior year of high school when I lived in Korea, I did. And then I went to Arizona State University, as I've mentioned a few times during this podcast, go Sun Devils. And my freshman year, um, let's see, what did I do? I don't think I worked my freshman year. My sophomore year though, maybe I did. Maybe I did. I don't remember. Definitely my sophomore year though. No, I did my freshman year. Worked at the computer lab.
Hmm.
Worked at the computer
Just
lab.
like check people in.
No, no, I was like, something's wrong with my computer. Help me.
No,
Yeah, I
you
did
were
that.
IT.
Yeah, I did that kind of thing. For two
Okay.
years. I worked at the Computer Commons for 2 years. And then I became an RA, a resident assistant hall monitor. I did that. Um, and then let's see, and then I worked at the front desk of my dorm. It's not a residence hall, it's a dorm. I don't care. Leave me alone. I did that. And then once I graduated college, I worked at a nonprofit online post-secondary education provider that got sued out of millions and millions of dollars years later. I won't name them, the University of Phoenix Online. And I did that for like a year or so. And I hated it. And I've been working ever since I was 15 pretty much, because I
Yeah.
decided that and I think it was instilled in me that, like, get a job, work, do something with yourself, don't just live off the land, right?
Yeah. So for me, this experience was really different. My obviously, I've said in previous episodes that I'm the youngest of three. So my siblings had jobs when they were in high school, largely just like cashier jobs, typical high school things. And then I got into high school and I really wanted to have a job and I tried to find one. I remember I even tried to get a worker's permit so I could start at 15. And I remember, this was back before most job applications were online. And I actually went around to like different, you know, restaurants, different stores, whatever in my area to try to find something. And I could never find anything that was willing to hire me and was also something that I could do.
Mm,
Because I felt like a lot of the problem was those high school jobs are typically things that require more manual labor, whether it's being a cashier or working at like a McDonald's or working at the movie theater, whatever it may be. So I didn't really work until after I graduated college. Now, when I was in college, I did uh, participate with the student run radio station because I was a radio major. But that was all volunteer. I wasn't, and I never was a director or anything like that. And I was also in a fraternity. So that took up, but those two things took up, a good amount of my time at that point. So I was a bit of a late entry into the workforce. And I remember when I started working my first full time job, which was in 2017. So about 8 years ago now, if you're listening to this in 2025. I remember, I knew what to expect to a degree, but I remember there was that learning curve probably for the first like 6 months to a year of like what it actually was like to work full time and interact with your coworkers and just like the day to day of what that all entailed. So certainly, it took a little bit more time that I kind of wish I had had more experience to that earlier.
yeah, I I feel fortunate that I was able to find some jobs. So one cool thing about you and one not cool thing about you is the same thing, is that you don't know what life was like before the ADA.
Right.
Right? It's always been a part of your life, which is cool. And one part of the ADA is that workplaces have to make reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities in the workplace. And reasonable accommodations is such a vague term. It's so vague. What does that even mean? Right? And so I think, especially in the earlier days of the ADA, employers would look at that term reasonable accommodations and freak out because they would think, oh my goodness, this person's going to need an elevator put into the building, right? They're going to need a car to pick them, whatever, just ridiculous things, when it's really not that bad, right? And so I think in one way it discouraged people from hiring folks with disabilities, and on the other end, it made, for those of us fortunate enough to get employment, it made it easier to thrive in the workplace, right? So when I worked at that company, University of Phoenix Online, back in the early 2000s, they said, what do you need? And I was like, well, I need a headset, I need a way to answer the phone, and I need a little stand for my keyboard. And that was really it. It wasn't a lot, right? Maybe $250 worth of equipment, and that's all I needed to do my job. And it worked. And the people that supported me there and helped me thrive were great. They were wonderful people. And so it was fine and it worked out. And every other job that I've had since then, I've been actually pretty fortunate, because it's either been at a university, which, like, if you've never worked at a university, universities, they will do anything they can to accommodate you. They will move mountains to make sure you have what you need, right? And it's empowering. It's an empowering feeling, right? When you can have that level of support to do what you do and thrive in that space. And then I've worked at nonprofit organizations, disability focused nonprofit organizations, which, like, what are you going to tell me? No, this is what you do, right? This is what you do. So I've been very fortunate in that regard to do things in places that embrace disability, right? And even in voiceover, right? Like, there's no voiceover specific protocol for accommodating people with disabilities. I had to make my own studio so that way it would accommodate my chair. But, like, I go to conferences or workshops and things, and disability is now being talked about, right? I was in Atlanta a few months ago, back in March 2025, at VO Atlanta, which is the biggest voiceover conference on the planet. And we had a panel that talked all about disability and voiceover. And they had a stage with a ramp so all of us could get up on the stage and talk about what we do. And so the ADA made all of this possible, right? So thank you, everybody who fought for it. Thank you to everybody who signed off on it. And thank you to everybody who continues to follow it today. Well, you kind of have to, because it's the law. So thank you for following the law.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it does make a huge difference. And you're right. Like, I have the benefit of not knowing a world where it didn't exist. Obviously, I benefited it from, I can't speak. Sorry. I benefited from it in a lot of different ways. And it is incredibly important to not just you and me who were born with our disabilities, but even, if someone has a temporary disability, what have you. I mean, those ramps, those accommodations affect their lives as well.
Yeah, indeed. And so going back to talking about work, we're not going to talk about the folks that choose not to work. Again, no judgment. I totally get it. There are plenty of days where I'm like, you know what? I'd just rather collect Social Security and be on my way and do what I want. We're talking about those of us who work, and there are a number of us who do. I think the latest statistic was like 30% of people with disabilities work, right? Compared to 70% of people who don't. That's a huge gap, by the way. And some of us choose not to work and others can't. Just to throw it out there, some of us want to work, cannot. And so they don't have a choice in it. So, but for those of us who do have a choice in it and have chosen to work, it's a landmine field, a field of landmines, right? Because there's so many hurdles that 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 say, yes, we want you to work too, but not too much. Not too much. Don't work too much, right? What a lot of people I don't think know or understand is that there are income limits for how much you can make and still receive your benefits. So both you and I probably receive state Medicaid benefits, right? We
Right.
receive state Medicaid benefits. There is Medicare as well, which is a federal government program administered by the federal government in Washington, D.C. We receive state benefits, Medicaid benefits. Now, our benefits pay for things like caregivers. They pay for our durable medical equipment like wheelchairs and shower benches and other things that we need to live day to day. Now, each state has different rules about how much you can make and still be eligible for benefits. Now, I will say this, once you go over that limit, you are cut off. There's not like a grace period where or like once they find out that you've made enough money, you are cut off. Now, having said that, most states have programs where you can be on your Medicaid benefits, pay an insurance premium, and stay active in your benefits and stay in your job up to a certain income limit. Now, most states say that you can't make over like $2,000 a month or $2,100 a month. The monthly income limits vary between states, but they're relatively close. It's around $2,000. All right. Now, in the state of Arizona, there's a program called the Freedom to Work program, and most other states have something similar, I believe. And the Freedom to Work program allows me to make up to like $59,000 a year, roughly, and still keep my benefits. And once I'm over a certain income limit, then I have to start paying monthly insurance premiums. But the insurance premiums are capped at $35 a month. So totally manageable, right? And I can stay on my benefits and I can earn a livable wage, not just a surviving wage, a livable wage, because I'm single and I don't have any other responsibilities other than my cat, who eats very, very well, by the way. Thank you very much. Eats better than most people I know. And so I can do that. I can have a job. I can make money. Now, having said that, there's still an asset limit, a total asset limit, which says that your total assets, everything that you own, can't be over $2,000. I know people who can pee $2,000. So what are you supposed to do? Like, I'm making money now. I'm able to save money. Oh no. Oh no. My paycheck is over $2,000. Am I going to get cut off from my benefits? No, not necessarily. You get reassessed every year, once a year. So how do you get around that, Kevin?
Well, in my case, I would say I use an Able account, which is a bank account that you can invest in, or you can deposit in, and it doesn't count against your government benefits. So I think the limit currently is $19,000 annually. You can contribute to that without risking losing your government benefits.
So about 13 years ago, the Able account was created, right? Because there's so many hurdles to people who want to work. And believe me, there are so many of us out there who want to work, whether it's for ourselves or for somebody else. We need, as human beings, to have purpose in life, right? And one way we find purpose is through our work. Again, whether it's for somebody else or if it's for ourselves. However, you can't earn anything meaningfully without going over these total asset limits of $2,000 a month. And so the Able account was created. It allows you to save up to $100,000 into this tax advantaged account, which means it's not taxable. And as Kevin said, it doesn't count against your benefits, right? And so here's my example, my personal example. I got hired full time at the organization I work for now, Ability 360 in Phoenix, wonderful organization. And every month I was making money, but I was pulling in well over $2,000 a month. And so I was able to save money. I'm like, oh my goodness, I actually have money in my bank account again for the first time in over a decade. I don't even know what that's like. I can buy cheese for my hamburger now. What's that even like? I had no idea for so long. I forgot what cheese tasted like. And so I was making money, and then it came around because I know roughly at this certain time of year they're going to come calling to see if I'm still disabled and still need benefits and still qualify. And I was like, uh-oh, I have too much money. What am I going to do? Oh yeah, open an Able account. So I took all of the money that put me over the limit, put it into the Able account, and now it sits there. And that total goes up and down sometimes based on the stock market and other investment markets and all those other things. But it sits there. And as Kevin said, you can put in, if you're working, the limit is $19,000 a year. If you're not working, the limit's like 15.5 or something like that. So
Mm.
how, yeah, so you can put money into that account. Your family and friends can put money into that account. Please put money into my account, please, because I would love it. And you can save up to $100,000 total without it counting against your benefits. And not only that, but you can use this money to pay for disability related expenses. So you can pay for your caregivers, you can pay for food, right? Because I mean, that's an expense, right? You're disabled, that's an expense. You can pay for food, you can pay for a vehicle with that, you can buy a house with that. And this was a big part of why this account was created, because there were people like Kevin and me who wanted to, I don't know, maybe own a home one day and not live in an assisted living facility, right? Maybe we wanted to do that.
What a novel idea,
What a
right? That we
novel
want to be like
idea.
everybody else.
Seriously. And but we couldn't do that because it costs way too much money for the down payment on a home to even save it, because then we would get kicked off our benefits. And so somebody was like, how can we fix that? We can create an Able account. So they did. And so now we are able to save money like everybody else. $100,000 in the grand scheme of things isn't like life-changing money necessarily. However, it's not an insignificant amount of money, right? And so we can buy vehicles now that are ours. We can buy homes now that are ours. And
Look at us go.
look at
We're
us
like real
go.
adults. We're like real adults.
Look at us go. And so for anybody who is watching this podcast, if you want to work, I guarantee that there's likely a program in your state that allows you to work and still keep your benefits. Because I hear so many people say, I want to work, but I'll lose my benefits. Yes. However, there's probably a program that allows you to work and keep your benefits. Now, then, once you do that, and if you're making good enough money, open an Able account and put your excess money into that account. And then you can even get a debit card that's connected to that Able account. So you can buy disability related things with it if you want to. How are they going to track you? Somebody will probably come knocking at some point to say, hey, show me what you're spending this money on, right? You can't spend it on like, I don't know, a pedicure, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
strippers.
It's
You
going to be
can't,
disability
right,
related
right.
things.
Yeah, you can't spend it on that. And no, strippers are not good for your mental health. Okay. No matter what they say, no doctor's going to sign off on that. But you can spend money from this Able account on disability related expenses. So that's how you do it. That's how you do it. So if you want to work and you think that the government's going to come for your benefits if you start working, they might. However, do a little research and see if your state has a program where you can work and keep your benefits, because it exists.
It would have been nice if it existed sooner. I mean, I'm glad it exists now, but it's definitely a more recent development.
Yes. So take advantage of it, please. So there's that, right? There's that. You still have to maintain eligibility for your benefits though, right? Like you cannot make over, like I said, in Arizona, it's like 58,000 a year or something, like 59,000 a year. So if I ever make more than that, I am now cut off from my benefits, my caregiver benefits, which is the most vital thing for me, right?
Which is
So
kind of ridiculous, isn't it? That it's all or nothing and it's not like a sliding scale as you make more money.
right now I can contribute a little bit to my caregiver costs, right? No, once you hit that limit, you're done, right? You're done. So it's a tricky balance. It's like we want you to thrive, but not too much, not too much, right?
Right.
And look, don't get me wrong, making up to 59,000 a year is way better than only making like 24 a year, way better, right? So, however, you and I have figured out a way to make it work, right? You and I have figured out how to work and keep our benefits, right? And thrive for the most part. We're thriving for the most part,
I would say
right?
so. We both live on our own. We both have caregivers who come in and out.
Right. We're doing our thing. So we're in the workplace. We do our jobs. Kevin, so you are a customer success
Yes, customer success manager.
manager. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, like, do you work remotely? Do you work in the office? Do you do hybrid? How does this work?
Yeah, so I'm completely remote, which has honestly been amazing. I was a commuter for about 3 years up until the pandemic back in 2020,
Thank you, COVID.
and
Thank you, COVID.
yeah, just having the time back in my day is amazing. But yeah, I work fully remote. It definitely suits me. Obviously, not being able to drive, it certainly makes it easier having a commute that's 5 seconds. But there is that part of being in an office of, hey, like I don't know how to do this, and just being able to turn around and ask somebody. Luckily, my employers have been very accommodating. They've been able to get me whatever I needed, and very similar to you, it's stuff that isn't that expensive. I've needed like a wireless headset or a chair that's a little bit taller so I'm able to sit down and stand up from it on my own, things of that nature. Arguably, a couple $100 worth of equipment. So it's not that challenging to make it work. I would never ask an employer to like install an elevator or something along those lines. And I do feel like there is a bit of that assumption that it's automatically going to be super expensive just trying to accommodate an employee with a disability.
Yeah. All the only accommodations I really need are like you, like if I ever was in a position where I needed to use the phone, a wireless headset maybe, and
Yeah.
a little stand for my keyboard. That's all I've ever needed. And now the Nintendo Switch 2 out June 5th at your local retailer because it's coming out. I do need that as an accommodation. All right. So it's not a lot, right? And so most workplaces, especially now, I think most workplaces are willing to make reasonable accommodations, right? Now the trick though for both of us is, as I mentioned a moment ago, there are income limits to what we have, right? And so like if you have aspirations of moving up in your job, right, you have to manage that somehow because like yeah, you can go up only so far though, right? Like unless you're a VP and making enough money that you can pay caregivers straight out of pocket, like you're talking like middle management positions that might pay you 70 a year, right? But when you factor in that caregiver services will cost you 30 to 35 a year, $70,000 not a lot of money.
All right.
If you're making 120 a year, yeah, you can do 30, right? Like you can swing $30,000 if you're like bringing home 120 a year, 150 a year, no problem. You can do that. You're
Hmm.
making 70 a year, that's a whole different story,
Right.
right? So how do we deal with that, right? How do we deal with that?
Well, I feel like it takes a lot of discipline and some good budgeting, and I mean, depending on at least in my case, getting help from friends and family members where you can, to kind of make things work. I know sometimes my family still lives in the area. Sometimes I'll go to my parents, go stay there for a weekend just to save money on caregivers. I think it's just doing kind of whatever we have to do to make it all work. Not necessarily going on, excuse me, all the vacations I'd like to, or doing all the social events I'd like to, because at first and foremost, the care has to come first. Because if that's not happening, then I mean, my day to day isn't really happening, and
Yeah.
I'm not able to go out and be social anyway. So
And so like for me, like in the nonprofit space, like I'm only gonna make so much money as in the nonprofit space, right? So however, like I'm working to build this voiceover business on the side. And to be transparent, I know some people who make a lot of money doing this, right? And maybe I'll be one of those people one day, right? However, there's going to be a period in there where I go from making good money to a little bit better money. That's not going to be enough for me to be able to pay people. I have to figure out a way to navigate that, right? Until I'm making, a six-figure income doing whatever I'm doing, voiceover or
It
anything
feels
else,
like a
right?
game of like mental gymnastics trying to make it all work sometimes.
It is fiscal gymnastics
Fiscal,
too.
yeah, fiscal
I
gymnastics is
mean,
probably a better
I,
way to describe it.
and look, the ADA has been wonderful in so many ways, and the rules and the programs and the guidelines that have been put in place have benefited us in so many ways. We are still so far away though from a system that allows us to thrive, like
Right.
really thrive, you
I think
know?
the problem is our society still very much still very much considers people with disabilities as like an other. Like the able accounts are great. Don't get me wrong, but like at the same time, why can't I just have that money in my actual, my regular
Yeah,
bank account? Why do I
yeah,
have to put it in this other account just so it doesn't count against me? Where we could just raise or completely eliminate potentially the income and asset limits. I think they would just have to be raised, but certainly like $2,000 in assets, especially these days, that's nothing.
it's nothing. And so, look, I understand the spirit behind some of these limits, right? Because otherwise, like people who don't really need it might drain the system. However, those cases are so far and few between in comparison to the people who actually need these things,
Right.
right? Like I
And
understand.
you're always going to have bad eggs. That can't be helped. You're always going to have people who try to take advantage of these systems. But generally speaking, I think the people who are benefiting them from them the most actually need them. And, yeah, I mean, I think that's important for people to keep in mind that you only hear about the bad things, right? Because
Right.
if it's newsworthy, that's what you're gonna hear about. But I mean, the vast majority of people need this just to live and use it as they're supposed to, and stick within the rules. But I mean, yeah, it's certainly challenging
Yeah.
at times.
Yeah, it's the reason people don't go to Australia. Everybody thinks that everything in Australia is going to kill you. Newsflash, folks. A, I've been there. Not everybody's dead. And B, not everything there is going to kill you. Because go back to A, not everybody in Australia is dead. Okay. Same thing, right? Yes, there are going to be some people out here who are going to take advantage of the system. However, most of us can't afford to do that. We need these services to live. Just
Right?
get rid of the limits, right? Just let us have.
Or just update them to modern numbers.
Yeah,
It's almost like the federal minimum wage, which is still 7.25 in 2025.
it's ridiculous.
We don't update these numbers to like modern times and taking into account like inflation and all of those factors. Well, I mean, $2,000 in 1985 or whenever that number was set was a lot more than it is today.
Yeah, yeah. It is. I mean, like you. I can't even like. You know what? Just fix the limits, please. Fix this, please. All right, all right. A lot of us choose to work. A lot of us choose to work, whether it's for an employer or for ourselves. All right, and we want to be able to thrive while working. So pull the handcuffs off, please, and let us do our thing. Right? There are so
And
many.
it's not like we're trying to live like the rich and famous. We're
Oh,
just
speak
trying
for
to
yourself,
live.
pal.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, sure. If someone wants to give me $100 million, I'm not going to complain.
Look,
But
if
we
I
just
can
want to
wear
be,
if I can wear velour boxer shorts, please.
yeah. Are you going to have a chain too that says Tony J?
No, no, that's going too far. I'm just gonna have pillowcases embroidered with Tony
Oh,
J.
with your
Yes,
initials?
yes. But not to cut you off. We just want to live, right?
Right. We just want to live. Like, we just want to live somewhat comfortably to the point where we know our needs are met. We know that we can afford food and we can afford to, live like a human being. I think there is also, I do think a lot of this exists because there is the assumption that people with disabilities, don't go anywhere and don't do anything, like societally. And I know that's changed a lot over the years, but I do feel like there are certain aspects of society, certain groups that still very much view us in that light.
I would agree. I think for a lot of the people that I know now, I'm the first person they'd ever met with a disability. Actually, let me say it like this: first person that they know with a disability.
Right.
Still to this day, like we're kept in a warehouse until like we've matured enough to go out into the world like a wheel of Parmesan cheese.
We're like gremlins. You can't feed us after midnight.
No, right? And so like nobody sees us apparently,
Yeah.
right? Like whenever I go to a class or a workshop or out to a restaurant, I'm the only one in a wheelchair in that place. Most of the time.
Most of the time.
Most of the
Yep.
time. Right? Still to this day. So if you're holding your wheelchair people in a warehouse, let them out, please. They need the sunshine. So look, I get it. I get it. There are benefits to just living off Social Security, living off the government teat, right? Fine, no problem. It can be a good life. However, if you have the desire for more to push yourself and grow and do things and see what you're really capable of, it's going to require making a little bit of money. It's going to require making a little bit of money. And often that little bit of money is a little too much for the government's liking. And you could run the risk of losing benefits. However, there are programs out there to help you stay on your benefits. So if you don't want to work, cool. No problem. Enjoy yourself. Live your dreams. However, if you do want to work and you think you can't, do a little research. I encourage you to see what's out there because you probably can. You probably can. I
There's
get
always
it.
a way.
There's always a way. I get it. I get it. And it's okay. We just want to live our dreams, right? We just want to
Yeah.
live our dreams.
Yeah.
So
And that's why we're here, Tony.
that's
That's what
why
this
we're here.
podcast is for.
Living our dreams. That's right. That's right.
Living our dreams.
So on that note, we're gonna wrap up ADA Celebration Month every July with that. I want to thank the ADA for helping us achieve our dreams. And I want to thank all of you for watching.
We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. He appreciates it. And thank you. Subscribe to our channel, like this video. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at FLW. No, wait, TLWA. My goodness. TLFL. TLWA podcast.
We're really cool. We promise.
Yeah, TLWA podcast. Next time, episode 9, we're coming back. I can't wait for this episode. We're talking about inspiration porn.
Oh,
You're
that's gonna
so
be a good one.
inspirational. You're so inspirational.
I feel like we're gonna roast some people on that one.
I'm feeling
Some
inspired right
organizations.
now. I'm feeling
Yeah.
inspired right now. I cannot wait to talk about inspiration porn.
It's gonna be a good one.
It's
Don't
gonna be
miss
a good
it.
one. All right. Until next time, I'm Tony Jackson,
And I'm Kevin Sullivan.
and we will be back. You have watched the Long Way Around podcast. Thank you very much for your support. Goodbye.
See ya.